Centuries ago, the West made a wrong turn concerning how we can know what we know. In this video, we will describe this wrong turn and the likely reason for it. As we've described previously, the only thing that we can know firsthand is our experience, our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions that occur in our minds. And this is knowable to us only through consciousness. From this, we humans have obviously examined our experiences in many ways, and we have derived information. We have viewed, weighed, and analyzed, including measures of weight, angle, size, distance, frequency, spin, amplitude, hertz, and on. We do this in order to better understand experience, knowing, and sometimes forgetting that this is all information that is derived from experience. From these measurements, we have then formed models that are mental constructs of how we believe the world to be, including mathematical models, none of which exist in reality, but only in our minds as approximations that we continually refine with changing information. But around 1600 in the West, with the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, a distinction was drawn between our qualitative experiences and quantitative information. Western science was born, and a curious thing happened that with the increased focus on the physical, people paid less attention to the qualitative experiences that gave rise to the quantitative information. This was the beginning of the attitude that if you couldn't measure it, then it didn't exist. Eventually, many people considered this physical information to be base reality, and that everything else needed to be described in terms of the physical, including our subjective, qualitative experiences. But here they have understandably run into problems. For instance, an experience of a smell can be described to a limited extent with quantitative information, but what cannot be done from this information is to recall the memory that the smell of that particular flower evoked in your mind. The experience of the smell cannot be recreated. Our qualitative experiences can be described only to a limited extent in quantitative terms, and you cannot reverse engineer from the quantitative back to our qualitative experiences. This would be to derive more from less. One can experience a set of colors and then describe them in analytical terms, but you cannot then reproduce the experience that those colors had on your emotions. That is more from less. It is easy to comprehend how the experience of listening to music can have detailed sound waves, but what cannot be done is to reconstruct the qualitative experience of a moving piece. That's more from less. Our tactile sense is something that appears to us as in part physical, but the emotion that someone's touch can create is beyond reach. More from less. This translation from experience to physical representation back to experience fails for experiences of all of our senses. And our conscious inner life appears to us as the brain and its function, but it remains true that you cannot reproduce conscious inner life from the physical. If in doubt, please see our video Matter versus Mind for evidence against this view, and watch the video How the World Works for an alternate perspective. Our egoic self has a collection of memories as experiences, and yet there is no known physical representation for this in the brain, so there is again no way to produce memories from the physical, or more from less. And of course, consciousness, awareness itself, which is the act of knowing anything, is not only not represented in our physical substrate, but ironically is that which materialists claim to have without any understanding of its origin or even why it should exist at all. For if we are only physical, then physical laws dictate all behavior, and awareness of behavior is an unnecessary addition. This is the hard problem of consciousness, which is a problem only because of this metaphysical break, and disappears by viewing experience as primary. It is unsolvable to materialists, just as we cannot recreate any other experience of the mind from the physical, because it is to demand more from less. So why did this disconnect happen? No matter how scientific or enlightened a person is, they are also bound by human nature. When this qualitative-quantitative rift began, The church was an incredibly powerful entity in the West, and the church had firm control over anything remotely related to the person or quote-unquote soul. Those without power had to act in non-threatening ways toward the church, and so they carved out some territory in the form of matter that the church did not consider a threat. So this disconnect, likely created by a power imbalance of history, then developed into an epistemological and metaphysical shift that remains to this day, at least in the Western world. Even regarding naturalistic explanations of existence like idealism, described here. Recognizing the problem is the first step toward correcting it, but the issue is that many people don't yet see the problem. It is as if they live in a rich three-dimensional world and have created a map in order to document that world, only to turn around and claim that the map is the world while ignoring the richness around them. You can't regain the richness of the territory from the map, just as you can't regain the richness of felt experience from quantitative numbers and models. To move forward, we need to return to the recognition that the only fundamental knowns of our existence are our mental experiences, even though they are difficult and in many cases impossible to measure. Then we can move forward from that reasonable beginning. With that, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for Consciousness Squared.